thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I feel really nervous but confident and happy to be here. Yeah.
Good. I want to start off with choices.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about making choices? Whether it's what you wear, like why did you join the military? Why did you decide to jump on a bike and ride around Europe? Like,
Choices are a hard one. I think a big thing is people get too caught up in choices making. I think there's a bit of a overthinking or a power of overthinking that can take over. So I'd say making a choice for me daily for what I wear would be like trusting just how I'm feeling and sort of building that representation of trust within myself. And then to make a choice to do something as big as joining the military or as big as a life-changing event, I don't necessarily think I believe in the divine choice of myself. I think it's a belief that I'm on the right path and that I can only react to what's coming towards me. And that's where I feel lucky and blessed to have so many of these choices available, so many of these things coming at me. If you imagine I picture myself as a shooting star flying through the world, and I'm the tip of the star flying across space, and all these other planets or stars or meteorites are flying past me, and they're all opportunities that I can choose to grab or gravitate towards. Some planets are so big that you don't really have the choice as a star whether you're going to be pulled into its gravity or not. And as early as I can remember, going to the military was one of those planets, so to speak, that I was so drawn to. And whether that was through exposure, whether that was through the way I was brought up or what inspired me. But I think by listening to yourself, you can really trust that you're on the right choice, on the right path to grow towards what you're aiming at. So trusting that, I look good today and reinforcing that. And I think that takes training. A lot of people may struggle with that over development of thought, over thinking, but just making a choice is better than no choice at all. The inaction of choices, that's when you become stuck.
You got a lot of books there. These are your books that you've written.
Yeah.
If you're not watching, you probably can't see them. If you're listening along, definitely worth jumping on YouTube. They're good-looking books. I know the words in there are very good as well. Reflecting on them, I was having this conversation this morning with a client about choices, things you're glad didn't happen. So reflecting back and you're going down one path or you're getting pulled towards one planet, and then all of a sudden something else come up and it pulled you in a different direction. Is there any moments like that where you look back and go, oh yeah, lucky that didn't happen and I'm glad I went in that direction?
Oh man, there's a million.
Yeah, okay.
There's a million. You know, I often, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about drugs on this channel, but I think a lot of people, in Australia at least, but internationally, can be exposed to drugs. And that's one of those life choices that everyone knows through Hollywood, through people they've loved, that you've probably seen a lot of it and then realized, I'm glad I'm not down that path. You know, I'm glad I'm not down that path of pain or loneliness. So yeah, there's a lot of ups and down battles exposure with that kind of thing in there, but also in general safety. There's so many places that I slept on the floor. There's so many places I pitched a tent where just watching Netflix nowadays, there's a million murder mystery stories of what could have happened to me. And just a few of them recently, I've actually had a bit of time to sit down and watch TV. And I think not knowing the dangers sometimes is better, being a little bit unaware of what could have happened to me. But definitely when I go through and reflect, some of the times where people could have abused me pretty easily, and that could have been physically or worse. There's so many, say, dangerous situations that if I had a young daughter or if I was a daughter, that I only imagine how my mum would have felt if she knew where I was half the time, and could only imagine the bad outcome that could have happened from that. Yeah.
And that's only from reflecting back on it. In the moment, it felt good.
In the moment, that's the next thing I'd talk about is don't manifest the wrong thing. Like, don't let your fear become the glasses of what you see the world to be. Because I believe sometimes you imagine the worst coming true, and that's all of a sudden the lenses that you see the world through, and that's what happens to you. And I've noticed that in small decisions with a number of my relationships, and especially the one I'm in now. If I really start to get caught up in this fear that I don't want this certain thing to go wrong, or I don't want to be that person or make that mistake, you obsess over the idea of making the mistake. And I'm sure there's hard science to show that that's what ends up happening. So yeah, let's just say I was sleeping in the train station in Tunisia. If I looked at this guy who's laughing at me on the floor in an African accent, can't imagine that I'm actually sleeping there. If I imagined that he had this dangerous intent for me, I often wouldn't have had any sleep at all. And through Thailand as well, there's so many places where I was sleeping on a shop front floor. And I had this true belief, and this is what I really want people to understand, this trust in what you call it, God, the universe, whatever your belief is. You need that trust. You need to like call upon it and allow it to work through you for that to become your reality. Because in those moments in reality, I woke up and there was a bottle of water, some food, something warm for me to have the next morning. And that was the simple trust of closing my eyes and believing that the world had good things for me. Yeah, and I think that's the flick of mental health right now that you need to battle.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah, you're not the bad things that you might fear or that you might say to yourself, because that's within all of us. You know, we all have those negative words. We all have that positive side, but that's the yin and yang that exists. We're constantly fighting that.
So with that yin and yang, bad and good thoughts, when those bad thoughts do get more powerful more often than the good thoughts, what's your process there?
I think some simple Jungian psychology is just allowing it and recognizing it and talking to it. For me, I really do struggle with like a lot of depression and mental health problems. And I think seeing it as a problem is taking away its power, but seeing it as the truth that it is, it exists within me, and being able to talk to your shadow self, a lot of people refer to it as that. When I am going through that, I often refer back to my books and I start to write about it, and that's my way of talking to it, allowing it to come out instead of just trying to suppress that constant feeling or those constant thoughts. And I think understanding that we're human and knowing that we're going to do bad things too, that's just going to happen. So you don't need to beat yourself up for it. And yeah, talking to it is probably the biggest advice I give to myself. It's okay. These happen. And understanding it is probably like anything that you do in the world, you can learn from it. So you'll probably notice it ends up taking you down some bad paths with your choices. But again, if you made that choice and you were responsible for your actions, then there is an equation for you to then learn from. So.
While we're still on choices, like, I even find it hard sometimes, and I like to think deeply about these things. Having an abundance of choice these days, like, whether it's career, like what to wear each day, relationships, friends, all that sort of stuff. Like, I know you spoke about being that star, but how do you navigate that?
I think that's where you come back to what your values are, probably. Probably making a choice to want good things or have good values, or having a mission or a goal orientate towards yourself, whether that's like, the millions of choices and the star flying through space and how much that means that there is to choose from. If you can try to navigate yourself towards something that is goodness, that you believe in, then that you can start to work backwards, I believe, from there, and think, is spending hours on my phone getting me closer to where I need to be? Is eating that food going to give me the outcome that I want? Because I don't know about clothes maybe, but is that going to bring me the confidence I need? Is that going to fit my own image that I see of myself? Is this career going towards my values? My values is people. I want to help and talk and be with people. So is this job that, yeah, sure gives me a lot of money, but I'm being isolated for 12 hours a day? Do I have the resources to make that sacrifice? And how can I start to use my goal, my vision, my mission to try and guide me closer and closer to the life that I want to live? So,
why do you think people struggle with that so much? So a lot of the time, and again, a lot of these conversations I have is to try and get people to understand purpose, because there's a lot of people out there that are just going day by day, wake up, just go through the motions, not really understanding their purpose or, where that star should be even heading. They're not even on a star. So why do you think people struggle with that so much, like making those choices, purpose, values?
Why do people struggle with purpose? That's a good one, man, because I struggle with purpose, you know? And I think even when you have a purpose, you're not sure, is that the right one? Maybe everyone, I can't really speak for everyone. That's something that I find that I often don't, I try not to do and say, putting everyone in a bigger bubble. But I think you can often find that the negative things in the world, everyone can relate to. So we're all kind of happier to be in not a negative bubble, but we don't necessarily want to identify in a positive bubble. So to say that everyone struggles with purpose, probably closer to the truth than everyone feels good all the time, And I don't know if I could tell you why a lot of people struggle with purpose, to be honest. We'll come back to that. Yeah, maybe I'll feel something with the.
Yeah, I asked that question because I definitely want to know your opinion, and I struggle with purpose. I think it is something you struggle with. I don't think it's something that you just get one day and then you got that purpose and that's it for the rest of your life. I feel like it's something you continuously work on. You lose it sometimes you find it. But yeah, it's hard.
I think it's funny, man. Saying no has been a really big thing in my life. I think learning how to say no, put that across a million things, but learning how to say no with, let's relate to a career purpose. I've had some pretty incredible job opportunities come up my way because I was seeking them. I was seeking success. You often get the things you look for, but to be able to say no to those opportunities that felt so right, felt so worth the money, felt so worth the position or the power or the location, or to then learn about your aligned values and really question, a lot of people don't have that choice of finance, but to be able to balance that and go, that isn't going to serve my ultimate purpose. That isn't going to actually bring me closer to where I want to be, or just trusting that there's something inside you saying that that's an amazing opportunity, but maybe someone else deserves it because I need to say no to that, which has often put me in situations that feel like saying no to that is gonna leave me without a purpose again. It's gonna put me back to what I felt like half the time's ground zero and thinking, I don't know what I'm doing with my life again. But I've just worked, 8 months, a year, whatever it is, to get to that opportunity for someone to give to me. And leading up to the months before, weeks before, I've gone, no, actually, I think we often try to identify with the thing that is coming towards us. And then realizing that no is such a powerful answer. It's not no to that, it's yes to everything else. And that's where you realize that some planets, if you're the star, pulling you in a direction that isn't yours, and that's okay for you to say no to and get out of its gravity, because some of them could be really negative paths, or not even. You could just loop around that planet for years and years until you don't even know which direction you're going to come out of at the end.
Mm.
And then you're really lost in your own purpose again. So staying true to your values will help you get along with your purpose.
Mm.
Mm.
Writing.
Mm.
Where'd that start? Where'd it come from?
I just wrote about this and I said thanks to my mum. So I was, get this right, I was 8 years old. Didn't do grade 3. My mum and dad and my brother, we all went backpacking around the world for 6 months. They saw that as more valuable than the school that year. And my mum would love to remind me how lucky I am to be here, how lucky you are to be traveling like this. And I didn't really understand that when I was sleeping on a train for a third night or something. So, okay, I'm lucky, all right, this is lucky. And she said, you've got to write down your experiences, write down what you see. Just practice writing because you're not at school, so you've got to do something. And as a kid, you're not really sure, or you just trust your mum, you just listen. And so, yeah, I'd say that about 8 years old was when I first started writing, thanks to my mum. And it was an on and off process until I was 17, going away again to Papua New Guinea. Brought a diary there because it was just like this, going back to the most original version of my childhood self again and going, oh yeah, that's what I used to do. Like I already related to this cool nomadic person who wrote travel journals. And then again, I went away on just a few smaller trips with one of my partners, and we just loved the artistic practice of drawing and writing. And that's why I started to pick it up again more and more and started to relate to poets in the world and started to talk to people in the army who were really driven by people's writing. And there was a lot of time in the military to sit down and read. And I thought, I'm not really good at this reading part, but I can write. I can live and then write my experiences. And I was inspired by one of my best friends, Cal. He kind of pushed me to get out into the world again after going through some painful experiences. He was really committed to writing books himself. And I was probably jealous of him, like watching him just focus for an hour whilst I'm on a train. Like I'm bored out of my brains and this kid's just so focused on something that's himself. And I think I really desired that. And so, yeah, I picked up this small, would have been literally a palm-sized book. And as I say, from all my childhood selves, you're sort of being told to write. And that moment when I was an adult and decided to start writing, it's just a small palm-sized book. And I just wrote quotes that I would hear, quotes that I would make up, quotes that I would live through and go, you're an outcast. And what did that mean? And start writing about it. And then I bought my first book in Manchester again. And pretty much just started writing about how an Irish guy tried to rob me. And I just found the fun in that and kept going.
While we're on that, like starting back writing again, any tips for people now at any age just on how to start writing?
Grab a book, grab a pen. Don't worry about the aesthetic. These look great, but this is after 7 years of caring about it. These books look amazing and I can get a special pen and whatever. If you've got a pen, if you've got some paper, just write, even if it's on a napkin. I've got a bunch of excerpts here that are from pages not even in books that I've had. Just get it out and don't be critical. Don't worry about what it looks like. Just put it on the paper because like anything in health and fitness, like any routine or ritual you have, if you don't just practice it daily, regardless of how it compares to the rest of the world, you'll never practice it yourself and build your own routine or build your own intention to do it. So just don't worry about the aesthetic if you're starting to write. Just grab the paper and write how you think and how you feel. And the amount of times, even in all my pages, I've gone, date at the top, such and such. I don't know what I'm writing. I don't know what I'm trying to write. I'm just trying to do the motion. And often one of my, I call her my second mum. She said, if you want the writing bug, just ask for it. So again, it comes down to intention and putting that back out to the world, letting it work through you.
So what was the draw to the military? And where'd that come from?
as an adventurous young man, you probably think military is somewhere you're going to travel and get put into some pretty high pressure situations. I thought it was a place to be creative. I definitely wanted to be a part of a team. I definitely wanted routine and discipline, and I wanted to be around people who wanted to like make the most of themselves, you know, like especially in fitness. I want to be around a bunch of guys who are like, together we can make anything happen. So I think you'll find that in a lot of the special forces regiments, that those guys are just operators, man.
And you think you found that in there?
Look, I didn't. That's the thing. Okay. I didn't find it there, but it definitely was the catalyst for me to find where I am today. I work in private security as a chauffeur, you could call it, a security driver. And the military, I wouldn't say is a place of free choice necessarily. When you think of the military, you don't think, oh, yeah, those guys are making free choices. In private security, that's a bunch of guys who aren't being forced to be there by a government or a Commonwealth entity. There's a bunch of guys who want to be doing that. So I was 18, man. I just needed some exposure to the world. So it taught me everything that I needed to know about big corporations, like basic paperwork, about how people are from 18 to 40. You know, when you're working with a 45-year-old doing the same thing as you digging a trench, you start to really understand how the world can start to work, because then you've got your manager, so to speak, your officer, he's only 30. And so you start to realize that age and wisdom aren't just your number, you know.
So how long were you there for in the military?
I did 2 years, man. 2 years before I chose that if I stayed another 2 years, which everyone who knows the military is 4-year contract. If I stayed another 2 years, I probably would be probably mentally way worse than I am. Yeah, so or physically, to be honest. Yeah, got a lot of physical and mental abuse from a lot of the guys that I thought were on my team. So a bit heartbreaking at the time, but when you go looking for a team and then that team ends up hating you, it's a bit like there's a million stories like that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I was just grateful to have known about it before I went in. And I was grateful enough that, I mean, I could argue with anyone. So, yeah, I stood up for myself at the end of the day. And I think some people that I saw in there just kind of cowered towards, so I'd say giving up or just cowering towards something they didn't actually believe in. So, yeah, I got out because I was like, nah, I'm better than this. Not in the military. I'm not saying I'm better than that, but I deserve better. So, yeah, I jumped out after 2 years, man.
And then?
And then flipped a coin and ended up in Japan because it landed on heads.
Where was Tails?
Tails was not to go. Tails was to wait until October.
Right.
But 2 weeks later, I was off in Japan. And I started my little, what I would call the people's media. It never really amounted to anything other than all these books. But it's just about meeting you, Jack. It's about meeting you and everyone with that heart and mind around the world and just capturing their stories. And yeah, that's where I really started my 9 months around the world. Hitchhiking, sleeping on the streets. Just the one thing the army does is teach you how to be homeless, like how to be good homeless, you know? You know how to eat, you know how to sleep, you don't stop, you know?
How do I be good homeless?
How do you be good homeless? It's a bloody mindset.
Okay.
Yeah. No matter what you're struggling with, you get up, you do your routine. You know you've got to eat. You know you've got a mission. You know that no matter where you slept, you slept. It's kind of like a gratefulness for nothing. Yeah, you be good homeless by feeding yourself, by not worrying about the tomorrow, because today you need water right now. Maybe there's millions of people around the world who are just living day by day, let alone in the Western world who are spoilt for choice living day by day. So if you're out there and you don't know how to get water, that's your first goal, find water. The second goal, find food, you know? And I can be honest, don't get distracted by cigarettes. You know, I see a lot of people picking up cigarette butts on the floor when they're homeless, man. That's not getting you to the watering hole, you know?
So what was the goal? What was the mission? You said each day you're working towards a mission. What was the mission there?
I think at the start of my journey, it was the mission of survival. The mission of just understanding how I ended up there, understanding why I let all the voices on the negative side of myself, why was I letting them win? And I'd say, going back to the question at the start, like, what are the negative choices that take over? What does that look like if you're being guided by that side of you, maybe? That can look just like a lot of pain, a lot of self-inflicted pain. And I think a lot of people hurt themselves in ways that isn't just what you might typically think of someone hurting themselves looking like. I think people can get quite addicted to the feeling of hurting themselves in multiple different ways, whether that's staying in abusive relationships or going to a job that they absolutely hate every day, or not eating because they tell themselves that in the mirror. I think it's a feeling, right? And we're addicted to feeling something. And so you can be confused that feeling those negative thoughts is getting you somewhere, or you just need to feel. So you end up that's what letting the dark side wins looks like. It's just abusing yourself all the time in different ways. So at the start of my journey, man, I think I was just trying to understand why I was listening to him, the voices, you know? And I think that graduated slowly when I got to Nepal. I was always exposed to like Buddhism as a young man, and just that peaceful nature of that culture. And like any classic movie, I decided to go hiking and find myself in the mountains. And I'd say I did, you know. There's something in eating fresh produce that grows from the mountains every day, drinking fresh water, eating a hell of a lot of garlic, and walking, you know, being in a new physical location every day, let alone how beautiful it was around me. I think that's where I started to really turn the tides of my feelings and realize I'm not out here to hurt myself. I'm out here to simply experience the world for what it is, and realize that was my goal, to not have a mission, but to absorb the goodness every day and just lose track of time. Just finally be in control and lose track of time.
Amazing. I love that. So once you found yourself, what happened after that?
Man, there's a classic saying in one of my books about like killing the ego. I'm sure a lot of people talk about this. The next step after you've killed your ego, I would say to realize that you shouldn't keep it dead. The ego is such an important part of yourself that actually deserves to be nurtured. And we can't control how we're brought up necessarily. To a degree, you might be. But when you realize that you've got these parts in you that you don't agree with, when you're defining your values and mission and goals that you want to work towards, then there is a time when you have to kill parts of yourself, so to speak, and get rid of old values. So once I found myself, I realized that journey was never going to stop, and that was simply a cycle. And that could be to the moon, it could be to the world, it could be to the sun, but that is a cycle that you would just continue to go through your whole life. And if you think you've found yourself, think again, man. Go for a really long hike, you know? So once I did that, that's when I could just let go of a lot of old feelings. And I think I remained a little bit numb for a while during that process of shedding old skin. And that's when you really need to be cautious of like what voices you listen to, because you're not quite sure. Is it a good? Is it a bad intention? What planet am I going past here? Is that a meteorite going to hit me? Like, so I just used good people around me. And I think I've always been lucky or focused on having good friends around me. So I often just resorted back to good-natured people and just tried to expose myself to them and listen, really listen to whether it was the wise monk in the mountain or the first generation Russian surfer in Indonesia. Like, everyone was escaping something and everyone was going through that journey. So relating yourself to everyone, realizing you're not on your own by going through all this. Speaking to a 30-year-old and him telling me like, oh yeah, I remember being 20 and going through that. You think you don't really understand it when you're 20, then all of a sudden you're 30 and you're like talking to a 20-year-old and you're like, brother, it's okay. You can go through this. So I just started listening again. I think that's the thing. I wasn't full of all my own thoughts and just let the world take me. Like I said, I just went from country to country, literally thumb up on the side of the road, and just trusting again that the next person that I needed to be exposed to or talk to would drive on past and pick me up.
And what kept you going? Like, why after Nepal did you not come home, or like, why keep going?
It's funny, like my best friend, because I'm conflicted with what kept me going, whether it was a negative energy that told myself I didn't have a home to go back to, or like a love that I was running away from, or was I searching and wasn't going back till I'd found what I needed to find. He left after a month. He came over knowing that he was going home. I always left going like, I'm never going home. And to say that was really I meant it. I was never going home. And what kept me going, I think right now I'd answer that I didn't have anywhere to go back to, and that what I was searching for wasn't with me yet. So to Nepal, I just kept flipping the coin, and that was such a good way to like
actually flipping a coin?
Actually flipping a coin, just letting go and knowing like this coin is a direct representation of what the world wants me to do. And now I'm going to completely go against that and say, sometimes it would land on tails, which was don't go. And when that coin is in the air, and this is written in the books, when the coin is flipping in the air, you already know what you want to do. And so you have to just trust that. Because if it then lands on tails and you think, I'm so unhappy with that feeling of I shouldn't go to the next country. Man, throw the coin away and go to the next country. Like, it's, that's, you've already got the answer, and you have to practice the trust. And I can't live with any regrets, man. I really, there's a million things I might have changed in my hindsight, but if I did change them, I just wouldn't be here as full as I am.
I think that's actually a good way to force people into making choices and trusting their gut.
Yeah.
Because you flip it, but then all of a sudden you know what you want. That's awesome.
And if you're in a place where you don't know, well, then follow the coin, follow the world. Let the world decide it's time to go.
Any fun stories from the travels that you can share?
What kind of fun, What kind of fun? It depends. Pick a country. Let's say I love this one in Turkey, because I think by that point I was with my two cousins, right? And we're all hard by then, We'd been on the road for 8 months, and sleeping on the streets was nothing to us. Because, we had everything. We had jet boils. We were cooking on the side of the road. I brought coffee from Thailand because I was a bit of a snob with that, I love my coffee. So that's, we'd have our tents, sleeping bags, and anything you needed to live was on your back. And that was the idea, right? You've got everything already, so go and find the rest. So we get to Turkey, and it's pretty cold. It's coming on to November. There's snowstorms kind of in and out of it, but we had some good weather. We didn't really know. We're 2 days in the country. We're hitchhiking we thought we were going to hitchhike to London. We're going to go all the way across Europe. So we're 4 hitchhikes, not really making it far, and the nighttime's setting in, and we thought, okay, we haven't eaten, we need to sleep, let's try again tomorrow. We've hiked a lot, we're sore, we've been on the road for way too long, and we pull over at this truck stop, and we just go behind the kind of barbed wire fences, and kind of start pitching our tents, like ticking it up, getting all our stuff set up. And the funny thing is we often just left our stuff there, right? We didn't care if anyone stole it. Like there was this complete feeling that it doesn't matter what you take from us, you can't beat us. And I said, all right, I'm going to go bin diving, which was like a way to find food. And yeah, so we went to this big shopping center. I found a bunch of bread and coriander, so that was going to be our dinner. And I came running back to one of the guys we left there. So 2 of us left, 1 of us stayed with the stuff. And we come back around the corner, and I kid you not, there he is, hands in the air, frozen, just white, like all the blood's out of his face. And there's this Turkish guy screaming at him with a shotgun.
Oh, shit.
And so we come running around the corner, freeze up as well, because now we're in this hostile situation, completely unexpected. And who are we, really? We're just a couple of hitchhikers. And so we have no idea what he's saying. But I just start screaming, like, it's okay, we're Australian, like stop, it's okay, like please. And then you can just see from behind him with this like phone screen, like clearly being shown to you, like it's the light from it. And it's this another guy, big beard, handgun in his hand. He must have been saying, what are you doing in Turkish? I have no idea. Showing me, like, read the phone. This is, what are you doing? I'm like, Australia. He said, Australia. Oh. Puts his hand down on his mate's shotgun. Australia, okay. What are you doing on Google Translate? Hitchhiking across Europe, like, just travelers, yeah? Okay. His English really bad. Australia, Turkey, good friends. And we're just like, my friend was just like so weak in his legs. And it just was this moment. He's like, okay, come. And so he's like, bring your stuff. So we quickly just like, not properly pack our stuff, just grab our and just run, jump this fence with him into the truck stop. And then we've come into this, like, there's probably 10 trucks lined up, and it's kind of like an overnight stay for them. They've just got this tea set up, small kitchen, concrete floor. It's really nothing special, but it was closed. It was like a glass enclosed, so we weren't exposed to many elements. And then we just, for the rest of the night, started conversating through Google Translate about, we're just traveling. He's from Turkey, his friend's from Syria. They own this truck stop. You can stay here for as long as you need. If you want me to get you a truck that's going to Europe, you let me know. He's laughing at us because we're on the wrong side of the road. He said, all these trucks go back to Turkey and no one's going to Europe. So it started from, are we about to, about to be killed? Is something really bad going to happen here? To then we pull out a bottle of whiskey from the bag. We all start drinking whiskey and tea together, and we just start eating all this, bread and there's this like Turkish sweet kind of paste that you can have with butter. And we just started sharing stories, and we became so close, and we're all drunk now, getting photos with us with all these guns in our hands. And, our hair's so raggedy. We've just started getting a few tattoos on the road as well. And it was just one of those moments where like something really bad could have gone wrong, but now we're best friends with the guys. And the next day was a blizzard. He knew that's why he didn't want us out there. He told us he thought we were going to rob him at nighttime. That's why they came up to us so aggressively.
Yeah, right.
I was like, fair enough. Fair enough. That happens, man. So yeah, we ended up staying there for, if I remember, it was 3 nights, just sleeping on a cold concrete floor. And it was snowing the whole time outside. And we just went crazy, man. Like, there was nothing to do. We're in the middle of nowhere at a truck stop. We just this is when we just started riding heaps and doing push-ups and just like tea and bread. That's all we had. Funny thing is, he didn't realize that the bread I'd got with the coriander was from the bin. So we were all sharing it. And I just said to them, like, don't say anything. No. It's all good, yeah? Yeah, that's just one classic story.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you then?
I was 2018. Yeah, I was 20. Yeah. I was 20s at the time, so.
Getting a gun shoved in your face.
Yeah. So that's when we felt really cool, because we ended up flying actually from Turkey to Manchester after that. So he was getting a truck to Macedonia for us, and it never came. the snow just kept delaying. And we just went a bit crazy after 5 days. We said, stuff this. Like, the funny thing is I had money the whole time, right? So all of this experience was like, I could have stayed in a hotel. I could have bought my own food. I had a bottle of whiskey, obviously. I had a bit of money, right? So we were like ironically homeless, you know? And so we bought the cheapest flight, which again, coin flip, London or Portugal. I think they were the two countries.
Okay.
And at the time, they were the same price tickets. Flipped the coin, London it was. We were kind of excited because my two cousins, London, they had British passports. They were going home, you know? I think we realized how cold it was and how hard that was going to be to hitchhike and travel. And halfway through the flight to London, there was like a drone, at the time they called it drone terrorism activity happening at Heathrow.
Okay.
So that's like just simply people flying drones on the airspace to disrupt the flights.
Right.
So it's kind of like a protest style thing. It was really 2018 December, that's when that was happening. And so mid-air, we're diverting to Manchester. And we'd already conned up a plan to go from London to Scotland, where his mum was living. So we're like, that's not far to hitchhike. I had about 50 pounds to my name at this point, so I was getting low. And of course we were going to do it. But when we found out we're on our way to Manchester, the pilots were also apologetic. They were giving out free drinks, you know, all these rich London people. They were so mad that they were going to Manchester. We just got half the job done in mid-air, you know. So we're celebrating, you know, like anything that happened was a good thing. And this is where I ended up staying in Manchester for 6 months, around 6 months on and off, because we got onto couch surfing and some guy let us stay in his like living room floor for 3 nights. 3 guys, 3 nights for free. That was just people's generosity, like I said. You only find it if you ask. And yeah, we ended up working in a pub for 6 months from that point on. So if I never got diverted in the midair, I never would have landed and started this book in Manchester and gone on to do even worse things.
How do you go about, in this building, there's a lot of people here, a lot of people from different backgrounds, different countries, different ages. And I like to approach people and say, hey, how you going? And, you know, find out their story. And when I talk, like when I make friends and then other people see me doing it to other people, they're like, oh, you know everybody. You just go up and say hi. Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah. Like, is that, like, I don't know. I just force myself to go and do it. Sometimes I don't feel like doing it, but I'm like, that person might have an interesting story. How do you approach that? Like, obviously, it's a very different approach when you got a gun in your face and you run up just saying something. But
mate, that's why we're here. You know,
yeah.
I think you have the same belief that you're giving the world the infinite opportunity to unfold in your life. You're trusting in the world that it may be a 10-second hello. The guy might not even want to talk to you. Or it could be the next best thing that happened to you, right? So I think you have the same mindset of trust that if I give it a go, if I make that action, I'm allowing an infinite equation of things to happen. And I'm trusting that you could see something good out of that interaction regardless of how the other person perceives it. So when they don't speak your language, you learn to read people really differently. Like, I think exposure to culture and language from a young age is really important. And anyone who has kids, I just encourage them to take them on whatever the equivalent of your like big journey looks like. Don't compare to what you're seeing on videos all the time, but what that is to you, to take yourself out into the world and kind of be shaken up. Bring your kids to, because they'll have an infinitely better life of whatever that effect had on them. I believe it's going to be a big positive one. So I think I was always seeing my mum do something similar. So I think a lot of exposure training allowed me to go, like, you can just talk to anyone. It doesn't matter what they think of you. Not worrying about what you look like or what they're going to think about you. Geez, that guy's a bit weird. He talks a lot, you know. It's just, you have that same trust in yourself. And I just love people, man. I just love talking to what do you have to say? What's your experience like? How are they going to react to if I ask them something that's not like, oh, how's your day, mate? Oh, what's going on? It's like, just throw something at them. Like, have you heard like what they think about the color blue? And then just see if they're listening. You know, I worked in coffee shops a lot, and you get to meet a lot of the same people, and that's a big difference between seeing someone 5 days a week for 30 seconds, a minute, however long you have that interaction to make the coffee. You could ask them every day, oh, hey mate, how you going? Yeah, good. Or you could just come up with something on the spot to just see if they're listening. And you're going to get 10, 20 people who are a bit weirded out by you or who respond in a nice way. But then you're going to meet someone who is also feeling like, I'm glad you gave me the complete random question of the day or complete random fact of the day. And that person will end up becoming your mentor for 2-3 years. That person will end up employing you and taking you overseas for, his work and exposing you to a side of the world that you have been desiring. And that's just the belief that the more and more and more I put myself out there, the more and more I can take back as well. So,
yeah. I had another guest on, Roland, who was a barista as well, and he spoke about trying to make a connection with somebody in 20 seconds. And it's definitely an art form, but worth trying to do.
Yeah.
For everybody listening, it's worth just trying to say hello and creating a connection in such a short time.
Just practice, say hi. Like if you can't strike up a conversation, just start by like saying hi to someone. And if that's all you can do because you're just starting out, let them talk for a bit and then awkwardly walk away and go like, what did I just do? But again, like it's like a learning loop. Next time you're like, I'm going to say like, have you seen the clouds today? You know? And then just keep practicing, right? If you don't try, you'll never know.
You said when you were in the military, you're working with a bunch of different people and you figured out how the world's working. What does that mean? How does the world work?
Just the world of power, probably, and structure, and big corporations. If you believe that plastic waste shouldn't be in the ocean, your belief isn't really going to change the mass purchasing order of a massive corporation. So I think I realized that it takes a lot for something to change. And something as powerful as the military complex, I realized pretty quickly that even if all the people in my position believed a certain thing, they had to get it approved by our boss. And then he had someone to get it approved by. And then he had someone to get it approved by. And that chain goes up so high. And I think that's where I started to really understand, like, not that there's a small few people that run the whole world, but there is a lot of people in power that probably have similar beliefs to you. But the sequence of how information goes up and down the chain or how policies and things start to change, it's not as simple as like, oh, I disagree with you, let's change it. So the big processes of not just paperwork, but policy and as a collective, how many people have to agree and pressure, because each link of the chain it goes up is a big time period too. So things didn't change overnight. I don't really know how the world works, but at the time I felt like just that exposure to formalities really is good teachings. So I actually think a lot of people should be in the military or have a try or be exposed to that, because once you get out, it's kind of like this badge of honor that you can wear, whether you're in for a long time or not. I think a lot of people will then realize how much you've been exposed to in that time, and a lot of people give that a lot of respect, as do I, to be honest. So.
Yeah, it's probably one thing, because I tried to do the military thing in my mid-20s, early 20s, but never eventuated. It's one thing I always look back on and go, I wonder if
Australian culture is built on the Anzacs. Don't you think? Like,
well, I was actually gonna. Again, I was in a dark place, and I wanted to run off and join the French Foreign Legion.
yeah,
And never come back again.
yeah,
But again, things just panned out, and I got pulled in a different direction.
yeah. French Foreign Legion. Again, bunch of guys who just chose to be there, right?
Exactly. Cool. Any, like, out of all the books and all the writing you've been doing, any takeaways or something that all listeners can use to, like, I like how deeply you think. Like, I want people to understand that, you know, thinking deeply, making better choices about yourself leads into being a healthy person. Like a lot of the examples you've given today, I can relate back to health and fitness and how people struggle with exercise, making the right choices with food, all that sort of stuff. Like, how can people learn from this to start improving their health and wellness?
I think you kind of just said it. When I have the summary, you'll see the book, right? There'll be a book on the shelf to buy when I think I've come up with a summary. But I think you've almost said it. And that instead of pointing at all the things that you don't agree with or that you want to change, I think some big takeaway for me is to point back at yourself and ask yourself to make those big decisions or changes first. And I think change starts from you and then reflects out into your environment. So I really think that you could name a million things wrong with a million different things. But if you could just turn that around and say, well, what am I doing and what can I do? Then everyone would be pointing back at themselves. And all of a sudden we'd have a world of people trying to change within. And that would start to just grow and reflect. And we would naturally see that change start to happen. I don't know about you, man. I don't like to be told what to do. So if I'm going to sit here and tell anyone what to do, is to do what you believe, but aim for that goodness and point back at yourself first before you start to say what things should be done. The food isn't good. You should find good food. You know, I can't do, or that's not good, or I'm unable for that. Or I just think turning inwards, like this whole podcast could be about what it means to turn and look inwards. I think that's what we're also hearing around the world, is that looking on the inside is the first step to changing the outside.
Do you think sometimes action helps with that as well? Again, like you said, going for a walk up in the mountains, like action. And then I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if it comes to trying to improve yourself, do you think maybe doing an action like going for a walk or going to the gym is probably better than sitting there thinking about it? Because a lot of people will struggle to think and maybe start with the action. Do you find that sometimes you've used action rather than sitting down and writing to get your head clear or start the process?
If you're struggling with taking the step, then you might be thinking too much about it, right? You might be stuck in that loop of getting emotional or chemical feelings in your mind from that thought intensely, and you're really just sitting there doing nothing. And that can be one of those false feeds that you run out of time then. So in the same way that I related to writing, if you want to write, don't try to get it all perfect. Just grab the pen that's closest to you and a napkin if it's there, or a piece of paper. And if you're struggling to get up out of bed, don't let the thought give you your body the feedback. Let the action be the thing that really helps you learn, you know? Get up, start there. Take the step, then think about the next. Go for that walk, don't think about how long it needs to be. Just one. It's a one by one process. Don't think about if you're struggling to get out of bed. Don't think about you have to go for the walk. Just get out of the bed. Just start there. Yeah.
This is probably a thought I've been having recently. You sort of touched on it earlier, so I'd love to get your idea on it, but it is about ego. So I've had a bit of a change in my life the last couple of months, and ego's been there, but like, I've been trying to think whether I should let it go, keep it, more about like chips on my shoulder. Say, you know, when I was younger, I was a fat kid in school. That's a chip on my shoulder. You know what? I'm going to work out every single day so I'm not that fat kid anymore and no one can call me fat. I think that's a good thing to have. No, other ones, you know, I didn't do well at school, but so now I try as hard as I possibly can with all my business stuff so I can be a success and no one can call me dumb. Things like that. Like, at what point, you know, do you stop with that ego? Like, yeah. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, I do.
I think there's good parts to have, but also bad parts. But then, like, how do I know which ones are bad and which ones are good?
Do you do things out of spite?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And that's like, again, that's what I've been trying to, I'm like, I don't want to, you know.
Am I doing this because I don't want to be fat? Or am I doing this because I want to be healthy? Could be the same thing, but I think the intent behind I want to be healthy because I want to look at myself as a healthy person probably brings you more aligned with what you want than I don't want to be an unhealthy person and I don't want people to call me unhealthy. That's kind of the inward-outward pointing game. I want to be healthy, or I don't want people to think I'm unhealthy. It's kind of where you start, right? And letting go of that ego. I think if you're having the conversation about it, that's just the positive start, right? If you're thinking, is this self, is this ego serving me? That's a good start. And I don't think that you always have to get rid of these parts of you, you know? If I go back to killing your ego, then you just don't have a personality, right? If you keep your ego dead, you've got no drive, you've got no self to care for. So coming back, like having good value for yourself, or positive, like strong love for yourself, and getting through that, man, it takes a lot of work. I really don't think I've got it all together in that sense, but starting with good intention, that's my answer for that one. Starting with good intention.
So how would you take on advice then? So what advice, when somebody's telling you something, what's happening internally? Are you like just taking it on board, processing, or do you jump in on it, try it straight away? Or you're like, nah, I don't take any advice, I just do my own thing?
I'm probably a bit stubborn, man. Probably a bit stubborn. I want to work through this question that you're asking before about going through big change and asking yourself what to let go of. If you've had a massive change in your life, whether it's like within yourself, like me realizing I needed to leave the military to be healthier, so to speak. What was driving me to stay away for so long was like a really dark feeling of I have nowhere to be, or I'm not safe there anymore, or they don't love me, or so there's a lot of feelings like that stop someone from landing on the ground, or they stay up in that thought, or they stay away for a long time, or they train and become the best fighter in the world. You know, you speak probably a lot of MMA fighters in the world, probably made it to the top, through some sort of negative force within them. I don't want to be the fat kid anymore, you know? But not letting that control you, that's the massive switch. Is knowing that that shadow self exists within you, and knowing that you have a yin and yang. You don't always have to get rid of the negative till it's dead, because then that's inhumane. You know, we're good and bad. We are. So understanding that you don't want to be that, but not using that completely as your compass, but knowing that that force will be behind you, and keeping the positive force as your tip, as the tip of that spear. That will, in my belief, get you to a better place than the negative part being the tip of the spear, and keeping the positive force behind it. And I think you'll always see in the world there will be both people will succeed anyway. It's just how you want to be. Do you want to be healthy, or do you not want to be the fat person, do you know? So you just have to let both of them exist, but choose which one to be the driving factor. Yeah.
Superhero or villain.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Because both are driven by something.
Yeah.
And both have negative, like the negatives within them. Yeah. What was the next question? What was that other part we were talking about?
Taking advice from people.
Man, people are only giving advice of what they've experienced usually, or what they've read, or like, even me, I'm giving advice. I like to think I've done a lot, so I like to think I give good advice. But I know that a lot of the time I'm also not giving great advice, because I believe that people should go through things and then come back and be like, whoa, I shouldn't have done that. Not that I'm telling people to do bad things, but I believe in the experience, right? I believe that through that experience, you'll truly learn something. And I also believe you can read something in a book and learn something. But which one sits with you? Which one sits with you? And next time you go to do that thing, oh, but I only read it. You know, what does he know? It's just something I read. Or, yep, that really hurt me. I'm not going to do that. Do you know? Or that I really learned through that experience. So when I take advice from people, especially because we like to talk to strangers and we like to, you know, just be very like, not people pleasing, but I like to allow people to feel comfortable in my company, and that their advice or opinion, I like for them to feel like it really matters and that I am listening, because I might only take away 1% of what they said, and they didn't even know that I knew the 99%. But when taking on that advice, I think allowing that person to give their full heart to you and like creating that space for them. But then if you're in a discussion, if it's something you really trust, then you can really delve deep into what advice they're trying to give you and where their advice has come from. I think so learning about their advice and going, yeah, I believe that person. I really love the life they're living. I believe in all their experiences they've had. I want to take on what they have to say. Or am I just trying to do some general understanding of the world? Is someone just projecting onto me their fears? Like, I've been really hurt in the past, you know, don't do that because that'll hurt you. It's like understanding what their intention is for the advice, and are they telling that to you out of fear? A lot of parents maybe don't do that to their children because they've been really hurt. And it's not to say that the kids should just go against what their parents have said, but understanding why they're trying to share their love and experience for you. Why are they trying to give you that advice? Probably they don't want you to go through that pain. So sometimes it's really hard because some people really just need to experience it to learn. And I'm one of those people. I need to go through a hard time to go, that was a hard time. And I'm also the kind of person who can sit with an older, wiser figure and take on that advice and realize they've shared that with me because they've lived and read and understood that to the nth degree. That is their thing to share. So understanding where their intention is behind the advice and not choosing to take on, but choosing to understand why their advice is being shared with you, you know?
100%. And that is very hard for people to learn. Like, do you think that's come from just like your life experiences, your parents, or writing? Like, how did
listening? Yeah, listening, doing.
Yep.
From doing, a lot of doing. And it's okay to allow someone to feel comfortable whilst they're giving you advice that they're projecting onto you. It's okay to not take that advice. Like, no is an answer, is a yes to another million things, you know? So if someone is projecting onto you out of fear and you have the conversation with them about that, you might help them change their opinion even. You know, you might, by just recirculating what they're saying to them, you might just see that they then go into this loop of they're just stuck in their own way or stuck in their head. And that's actually, you've helped them without realizing by just allowing them to, you know, our bodies are energy converters, man. That if we've just got all the energy that they've got and converted it by simply giving it back to them, you might realize that it's okay to say no to their advice. It's just a collection, man. Like computers, they're just a bunch of information getting put in, and that's all we are, just a bunch of information coming in. And instinct and reaction, that takes training. So if you've been taught a bunch of things and you've practiced a bunch of things, getting up, going for a run, being a healthy guy, I was practiced that through a bit of pain and forced to, you know, get up and do something hard. But if you've never been in that situation, then advice isn't always good. It doesn't always feel good, you know. Doing something you may want doesn't necessarily feel good, or trying to get advice from someone that, how do I grow my business, or how do I become a healthier person, or, you know, how do I achieve this goal? Don't expect it to be necessarily what you want to hear, or don't expect it to be like an easy journey, right? Often the harder one is the one that you needed to do. So it's not expecting an answer either, like losing your expectations for what advice you're seeking. Because remember, you don't know, and you're trying to know. So if you assume that it's going to feel a certain way or look a certain way, you're trying to answer the question before it's been answered. And then you have projected yourself onto the answer. And again, you didn't know. So
for everybody listening, go back about 5 minutes and re-listen to that. That was gold. I think a lot of people need to learn that and how to take that advice on and understand people and listen. One more. When I say the word fail or failing, what's the first thing you think of?
Failing forward. Yeah. Always from a kid. Yeah. Fail forward.
Where did that come from?
From my principal, I think. He was
okay.
Yeah, he was at a trade school. He was a real character, you know, for a bunch of hard, like, young tradie guys to have a very flamboyant and, say, poetically wise principal wasn't necessarily fitting for the school, but he was obsessed with the idea of sharing wisdom through stories, and it always stuck with me, you know. You can't fail if you fail forward. And it's that simple equation of action, and you haven't finished the loop of learning if you haven't analyzed what you just did and applied that to the next thing. So if it was a failure, you'd probably learn that in business school, I'm sure. Studying the actual action and the results is a part of the whole loop. So if you failed at selling a product, knowing why it failed is way better than not have tried at all. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail, but it's all about how you interpret that. Are you a failure, or are you not looking at whys and hows, and are you not committed to what you're actually trying to do? You know? Fail forward, man.
Yeah, I love that. Let's finish there.
Done, man.
That was
I
good.
really appreciate you having me. Hey,
No,
it's really nice to get to talk to everyone, and I just hope that one person enjoys it.
I'm sure a lot of people will. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thanks, Jack.